I genuinely believe today that I'm bringing you at least 5 players on this video that are going to be league winners. 10 players in total that are must-have sleepers going in rounds 9 or later that you shouldn't pass up on. Make sure you comment down below. Comment your favorite sleeper going in round 9 or later. Let's get straight into the video. Starting you off with a bang, my first player that I absolutely love, Brandin Cooks. A phenomenal value right now, wide receiver 38 in the community. I actually believe he's going a little bit later in some other platforms. We just did a redraft mock draft, and he went in round 10 to 10:05, as you can see. And it's fairly significant why this is important here. Obviously, you have to understand the landscape of Brandin Cooks and what's happening. This Dallas Cowboys team obviously has CeeDee Lamb and really no one else outside of CeeDee Lamb and Brandin Cooks. Yes, they bring in Ezekiel Elliott, but in the wide receiver room specifically, they get rid of Michael Gallup. They don't re-sign him. They have Jalen Tolbert and no one else. They don't draft another player. They don't sign somebody in free agency. It's just Brandin Cooks and CeeDee Lamb here. And that's something that's very interesting going into this season, because we did see a little bit of a hesitation from Brandin Cooks this past year when we saw him start off a little bit slow in the season, right? I mean, you can see here in the first half of the season, he was pretty much non-existent from weeks 1 to 5. Had his first real big game in week 6 against Los Angeles Chargers. But in the second half of the season is where he picks up. He scores 7 out of the 8 touchdowns that you can see here, only really scoring under 10 fantasy points in 4 out of the 10 weeks that he's played in the second half of the season, which is pretty significant here as well. And if you were to extrapolate this second half of Brandin Cooks' season, he would have finished as the top 24 wide receiver. And somebody that's going in round 10 as wide receiver 38 or later, finishing as a top 24 wide receiver, once again, extrapolation is not perfect, but if that is the possibility of where he could potentially be if he got fully acclimated to this offense from week 1, which he is going to be in the second half of the season, that's exactly what you want to see. And we've seen Brandin Cooks be successful with multiple fantasy relevant quarterbacks here in the past, has had 1,000 yards essentially almost for his whole career outside of these past 2 seasons with Dak Prescott in the 2022, obviously with Davis Mills, who was absolutely terrible as a quarterback. But now Brandin Cooks going to his second year as a Dallas Cowboy, who's going to be alongside CeeDee Lamb, taking off the pressure just a little bit and actually having a little bit more pressure on him, because now they're leaning more on him without the running back and without any other wide receiver help in that room. So Brandin Cooks is my first sleeper that you should be drafting. Okay, going into my next player straight away, Curtis Samuel is the next guy here that I believe is getting swept underneath the rug. Went at the 10-3 of our latest mock draft here. And look, one of the biggest things and one of the reasons why you should be going out and drafting him is because he's probably genuinely the wide receiver 1. I think there's an argument for him to be the wide receiver 1. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to say, well, it's Keon Coleman. Now, if you've been following us on our Dynasty channel, we're not big Keon Coleman believers. I do believe Keon Coleman is more of a Gabe Davis replacement rather than a Stephon Diggs replacement. I think he's more of the deep ball field stretcher type of player rather than the 140 targets that we are maybe hoping and expecting Stephon Diggs left behind, right? What are the other things we have to take into account there? That Curtis Samuel is reuniting with Joe Brady. And Curtis Samuel, the last time he was with Joe Brady was with the Carolina Panthers in 2020 and had his best season. You can see here in 2020 highlighted there, 14.1 fantasy points, his highest fantasy points per game in his career. Look at the yardage, his highest receptions, his highest targets. And why is that important here? Because that quarterback play in 2020, that was the end of that Cam Newton era, that Kyle Allen, where they were just in this little limbo where who the hell was going to be the quarterback at the time. And Curtis Samuel did his best with the opportunities that he was given. Right now, he's going to playing with the best quarterback he's played with in Josh Allen, going back to Joe Brady's offense, who wants to spread this ball around. And what's great about Curtis Samuel is that he knows how to separate. Curtis Samuel is a phenomenal route runner, a very underrated route runner coming out of Ohio State, and understands and knowing how to separate and being this slot wide receiver or someone that can play on the outside. Curtis Samuel, once again, going in rounds 10 or later, can easily, in my opinion, finish as a top 24 wide receiver, most likely by the end of the season. And we kind of saw a glimpse of that, right? If you look at this past year in the first couple weeks of the season with the Washington Commanders, look, week 1 against Arizona, 11 points. And then it goes week 4, 18, 18, 14. In that span, that weeks 1 to 6, right before he got hurt, actually, because he got hurt, dinged up in that New York Giants game. And then he was in and out for the rest of those couple weeks. And then he missed week 9. He was a top 24 wide receiver, averaging 12.8 fantasy points in that span. What happens if he would have stayed healthy the whole time? You saw him then come back in the second half of the season, 19, 10, 21. Consistency is key here. And once again, the quarterback play for the Washington Commanders was not the best. Now he's going to be playing with Josh Allen. Like I said, what can that look like? More consistency, more fantasy points. Maybe he is as good as a flex option, finishing once again as a wide receiver, a top 24 wide receiver going into the 2024 season. My next guy on this list at the running back position, Jerome Ford. A lot of people are talking about Nick Chubb and when he's going to be coming back, and actually drafting him in the 9th round, where Jerome Ford is currently going a whole round later at the 10-7 he was taken in our latest mock draft. I actually think that's going to be rising and significantly as we get closer and closer to the season, because respectfully, it's not that Nick Chubb's done. It's just I don't think he's going to be ready for the season. And if he is going to be ready, I don't think they're going to automatically give him, the 15, 20 plus touches that we all want Nick Chubb to get. I don't get it. I don't see that pathway. And I think there's a lot of hope for the Nick Chubb believers out there. I'm a Nick Chubb believer. I'm just a lot of hope for the player as a whole. I just don't see that being the pathway. We have to understand Kareem Hunt is no longer there. Jerome Ford, as we saw last year, stepped up. He stepped up. Nick Chubb went down, and he was the guy. He finished as running back 16, averaging 12.4 fantasy points per game. He was doing his thing as a top 24, 25 running back in the fantasy points per game, which, look, it may not be exciting, but going into the 2024 season, more opportunities, right? They have more belief in Jerome Ford. Not only did he get the tokes on the ground with 204 attempts, right? I mean, he got 44 receptions. That was with Kareem Hunt in the backfield. Kareem Hunt's no longer on this backfield, not Deontay Foreman. I understand. Maybe he's going to be taking those goal line touches. Either way, Jerome Ford is going to be having a safe floor. And someone that scored more points, obviously, than Aaron Jones, a Zach Moss, or Ramondre Stevenson, a Jalen Warren, a Najee Harris, Javonte Williams. I mean, Gus Edwards. I mean, Jerome Ford was doing pretty well and is going to be doing pretty well going to the 2024 season. Once again, going at the 10-7 currently in the community right now. And I do believe, once again, he is going to be rising where we're going to be seeing him going. I would say, I would lock it in right now. If Nick Chubb is not healthy, and comment down below what you believe, what you think. And in this hypothetical, if Nick Chubb is not healthy and ready for week 1, once again, currently as I'm recording this video, he went as the running back in the 10th round. I think that actually jumps up to the 7th round. Middle of the 7th round, potentially late 6th round as we get closer and closer to the season. All right, my next guy here at the wide receiver position is Quentin Johnston, a guy that I absolutely love. And let me tell you why I believe in him going into this year. And you may not like it, but please, I would encourage you to hear me out. Yes, had a terrible season this past year. Finished with 5.5 fantasy points per game. Finished 84th on a points per game basis. He had every single opportunity as a first-round draft pick to take over this offense. Mike Williams went down. Keenan Allen went down. There was a point in time where Josh Palmer went down, and Quentin Johnston did not make use of his opportunity. But what's incredible is the value here. A guy that's low risk, in my opinion, high reward. Going in round 13 in our latest mock draft, Lam McConkey in the 16th round. I agree with you. Lam McConkey is the wide receiver 1. But why not take a chance on a late flyer with one of your last picks of somebody who can easily is the wide receiver 2 on this team, in my opinion, and is linked to an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert. Not only that, is what Jim Harbaugh has spoken about Quentin Johnston. He said, hey, Quentin Johnston can be everyone that he can be the wide receiver that we all believe him to be. Why? Because Quentin Johnson actually beat Jim Harbaugh in the playoffs. Remember that. Okay, 6 receptions, 163 yards, and a touchdown he had in TCU versus Michigan. That is pretty significant, especially for Jim Harbaugh, because he knows the type of wide receiver Quentin Johnson can be. And if he is somebody going as a wide receiver 74, it's, I would say, undrafted in some leagues, why not go take him with a late round flyer and see how he could potentially perform going into the 2024 season? All right, my next guy on this list is Wan'Dale Robinson, my beloved New York Football Giants, the wide receiver 2 on this team behind Malik Nabers. And let me tell you why I'm excited about him. Another year removed from this ACL injury. Another year that he can come in and actually demand some targets in an offense that needs him. Yes, Malik Nabers is going to be the #1 wide receiver. Malik Nabers is going to be put everywhere on the field, in the slot, on the outside. Same thing with Wan'Dale Robinson. But what's exciting about Wan'Dale is how he understands his offense, how he's going to be taking the next step. Brian Dable himself, Matt Kafka themselves has also said, you know, Wan'Dale Robinson is becoming a leader. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be taking a next step coming into this offense and is going to be doing whatever we need him to do coming into this year. He's a late round flyer as well, going in the 14th round of our latest mock draft. And I don't see this guy rising. And genuinely, I doubt he goes, I doubt he even gets drafted because I took him in that 14th round of our latest mock draft. What's exciting here is that Wan'Dale Robinson in the second half of the season with Tommy DeVito, you can see it after the bye weeks 14 to 18, 17 fantasy points, 6, right? You can see it here, 17 fantasy points, catches 6 out of 7 targets there. Then obviously he has a little down week with New Orleans and Philly. Then he goes to the Rams, 6 out of 9 targets, 19.9 fantasy points, 13.5 fantasy points against Philly. He is somebody that is getting the yards after the catch and getting these quick, easy dump off passes and screens, jet sweeps, and so on and so forth. In that span, Wan'Dale Robinson in that second half of that season, weeks 14 to 18, finished as a top 30 wide receiver. That may not sound exciting, but someone going undrafted, that is exciting. And I do believe with the full season underneath his belt where he's not ramping up in the beginning of the season from this ACL tear, coming back with Daniel Jones, who we've seen be significantly better in the past. And look, he may not have produced a fantasy relevant wide receiver, but he did take this team to the playoffs and divvied up the Minnesota Vikings. And now he may be a different quarterback, whatever the case may be. He also has Drew Lock there as well. So whether it's Daniel Jones or Drew Lock, doesn't matter. Wan'Dale Robinson is a great late round flyer or sleeper that you should be drafting. All right, my next player on this list at the running back position is Rico Dowdle. And yes, you're probably saying, what the hell is this guy doing? But let's be honest with ourselves. Is Ezekiel Elliott really going to be commanding all those opportunities from the jump? I genuinely do not believe so. And Zeke going in the 11th round in our latest mock draft, where Rico is going in the 12th round, where I took him, I think we're going to be seeing more of a 50-50 backfield here, whether that could be like a Tony Pollard or Tajay Spear type of backfield, a Najee Harris and a Jalen Warren type of backfield. This is the type of backfield I'm expecting. We have to understand that Ezekiel Elliott is at his end. Let's be completely honest. He's at his end. He's not the same old Zeke. It's going to be exciting. You're going to be seeing him celebrating and doing the feed me thing when he's on the field with the Cowboys because that's his thing. But Rico Dowdle here with no one else behind him beside a Deuce Vaughn of 5'5". He's more like 5'7". But you get what I'm saying. That small running back and Deuce Vaughn, I think Rico is going to easily be taking these opportunities. Now, we don't have too big of a sample size here when we think of Rico Dowdle, right? I mean, week 10 against the Giants, he does get those opportunities because Tony Pollard, was in and out of that game, and they were already up by a significant margin there. You can see against Philly as well, 12 carries, a touchdown, 46 yards, over 12 fantasy points there. And then in week 18 against Washington, when Tony Pollard obviously is not playing, 9 tokes, 46 yards there, 13 fantasy points. The sample size is essentially non-existent. But what is existent is the opportunities that he's going to be getting, in my opinion, going into the 2024 season. All right, everyone's favorite player here, Dontavion Wicks. And let me tell you why he's on my list. Because I do believe I have been a little bit harsh, and I've been saying, hey, I'm not necessarily sure if I believe in Dontavion Wicks. The only reason why he is on this list is because if Christian Watson goes down, I genuinely believe Dontavion Wicks can easily be a league winner. Now, the reason why I'm not 1,000% confident in this, not in this take, but in Dontavion Wicks specifically, is because I actually believe Christian Watson is going to be healthy, and I'm hoping and believing that he's going to be healthy. Christian Watson going in the 9th round, Jaden Reed going in the 6th round, Dontavion Wicks currently right now in our latest mock draft, which once again, I believe he's going to be going higher in the 11th round. And why are people excited? Is because of the expectation of Christian Watson not being on the field. And yes, we've seen him have a good little sample size in that second half of the season, weeks 15, 16, and 18, where he just looks dominant. And yes, I would agree, he looked like one of the most talented wide receivers, or one of the most athletic wide receivers on the team here. But the biggest caveat is that Christian Watson wasn't on the field. And I'm a big believer in Christian Watson. Now, I would agree with you. If Christian Watson is not on the field, Dontavion Wicks is easily the wide receiver 2 and has a tremendous upside. But if Christian Watson is not on the field, I'm not necessarily sure when Dontavion Wicks is going to be getting his opportunity. Now, the reason why he's on this list is because he costs nothing. Now, as we get closer and closer to the season, I don't believe that's going to be the case. But if you're someone out there that does their drafts early in the offseason, or maybe week 1 of preseason somehow for some reason, and the hype is still not all the way up there from Dontavion Wicks, I'm willing to take him in this round 11 price and take a swing on him in the beliefs that I'm saying in the beliefs that maybe Christian Watson is not being are not going to be healthy for the remainder of the season. All right, my next player on this list at the tight end position, Dallas Goedert here, being absolutely disrespected in the community, went in the 14th round of our latest mock draft here, and people are tremendously scared. I get it. Saquon Barkley is there. They get a long-term contract extension for Devonta Smith. AJ Brown is there, right? Saquon Barkley demanding these targets. Where is Dallas Goedert going to be getting his opportunity? I'm not necessarily sure it matters. It's because of how late he's going in the community. Tight end 13 right now. But look, we had to remember Dallas Goedert didn't miss the second half of the season with these, or not second half of the season, but didn't miss a chunk of the season with an injury. He does come back here, picks it back up, getting 14, 15 fantasy points per game, not necessarily needing to score because of how good this offense is. I do believe Dallas Goedert is going to be more of a George Kittle, maybe, getting his fantasy points from efficiency and goal line opportunities in the red zone. But we have to remember in the first weeks 1 to 9, he was a top 8 tight end here, right? Ahead of Jake Ferguson, ahead of Dalton Kincaid, ahead of Kyle Pitts, ahead of David Njoku, ahead of Trey McBride. Dallas Goedert is going to get a workload, even if he doesn't get a workload. And if you're telling me Dallas Goedert is going in the 14th round of your drafts, I'm taking that every single day, whether it's tight end premium or not, as a tight end too, because if AJ Brown goes down and misses time, Dallas Goedert steps up. If Devonta Smith goes down and misses time, Dallas Goedert steps up. Even if Saquon, which we have a history of Saquon missing time, Dallas Goedert steps up and gets more targets here. So if you do need a tight end in one of these late rounds, Dallas Goedert is a phenomenal pick. All right, my first and only rookie on this list is Jalen Polk, the wide receiver 1, in my opinion, for the New England Patriots. Let's have a look at this wide receiver room. I mean, there's really no one here of immense threat if you really think about it. Yes, they draft Javon Baker, which a lot of people love. I do love Javon Baker as well. I had Jalen Polk significantly higher in my rankings here. Juju Smith-Schuster, who honestly, he just can't stay healthy. Pop Demario Douglas, who had a phenomenal second half of the season here. And Jalen Polk, going in the 11th round, as a first New England wide receiver coming off the board here. And I think this is what's exciting about Jalen Polk, is that the opportunity is instantly given to him, not only from the fantasy perspective, but also from what the head coaches have been saying. They said Jalen Polk is a do-it-all guy. He is somebody that we're going to be relying on going into the 2024 season, somebody that they're expecting to be playing a lot on the outside, a lot in the slot, and being moved around no matter where he can potentially be. Not only that, he's gaining the chemistry and building the chemistry with Drake May, which is pretty significant here as well. So one of my first rookie league winners coming into this league. Can he be the Jaden Reed of last year? I mean, right? Jaden Reed finished as the top 24, 25 wide receiver this past year in the second half of the season. It may not be right away, but it can definitely be in the second half of the season. All right, going into my next guy. I bought this guy multiple times. He was a my guy last year and let me down. Jahan Dotson. And why was he a my guy last year? Terry McLaurin missed a lot of time, or missed the first half of the season. We saw that chemistry with Sam Howell, and then it just went downhill from there. Curtis Samuel, we like to call him the cock block, is no longer on this team. Now they go out and have Jaden Daniels, a phenomenal quarterback that has produced multiple relevant, or I would even say 2 first-round wide receivers, and Malik Neighbors for my beloved New York Giants, and Brian Thomas Jr., who's on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jahan Dotson finally has a competent quarterback who can distribute the ball. Yes, Terry McLaurin is still the wide receiver 1. But with the price here in the 10th round for Jahan Dotson, that we love the draft capital. He was drafted in the top 16 picks in the NFL draft out of Penn State. Obviously, in that year, in 2022, Jahan Dotson has a talent. He's a phenomenal separator, phenomenal hands. He just didn't have that opportunity to with the quarterback play because of that quarterback purgatory here. Now, once again, Curtis Samuel is no longer on this field. Jahan Dotson can easily be stepping up into this year and demanding opportunities in the slot or out wide from Jaden Daniels. So once again, going in the 10th round of your redraft league, phenomenal value. All right, staying with the Washington Commanders here, going to Brian Robinson at the running back position. This is somebody that went in the 9th round, so I'm cheating a little bit, sneaking up into that 9th round here. But I do believe his value could potentially be rising as we get closer and closer to the season, coming from the hype from the camp, right? Jaden Daniels has been distributing the ball. He looks efficient. Brian Robinson is going to be getting a lot of dump off passes from Jaden Daniels here. There's no question about it. And why? Because we saw that this past year with Brian Robinson. I mean, we were all surprised. We weren't expecting him to be getting 43 targets out of the air, with Sam Howell, but that was a lot of dump off passes. This offense is going to look a lot different with Cliff Kingsbury as well. 13.2 fantasy points per game. Brian Robinson had his career year coming into this year, and he is the guy. I'm not concerned about Austin Eckler and what he's going to be doing in this offense. Why? Because he took a real back step this past year. With the Los Angeles Chargers, those injuries, the older, he didn't have the same burst and speed. Now, he could take opportunities away in the air, no question. But he's not somebody I'm necessarily concerned about on a week-to-week basis, where he's going to be taking the opportunities on the ground and all the opportunities in the air. This is Brian Robinson's backfield to lose, and I don't think he's going to be giving that up because he's been through a lot so far, and this offense is going to be, I would even say, close to a high-powered offense if Jaden Daniels really does take off the way we are expecting him to. All right, and last but not least, to wrap up the video here at the running back position, Chase Brown downtown. Yes, Zach Moss is projected to be the #1 guy here. My projections is that Chase Brown is going to be taking a lot of these opportunities in the second half of the season, specifically in the air, and taking those opportunities from what we saw Joe Mixon have in the air this past year. Going in the 12th round with Chase Brown here, where Zach Moss is a little bit more pricier, right? He went in the 8th round of our latest mock draft here. And look, not too much of a sample size with Chase Brown. We saw in the second half of the season him here really at weeks 13 to 18, him really getting opportunity and getting more and more opportunity, but still really didn't break 30 plus snap percentages on the field. I do believe we see more the 45 to 55 range coming into this year, where we can have a bigger sample size. And if Zach Moss does go down, which he has struggled with injuries in the past, it's going to be Trace Brown backfield to lose then. And once again, taking one of these late flyer guys in a backfield that is not 100% sold, and if they're not 100% confident, what if T. Higgins goes down again and they need to get more opportunities, and then Zach Moss goes down? Chase Brown could potentially be the guy coming into this year with a lot of opportunity in the second half. Guys, those are my 10 must-have sleepers that you should not pass up on. Comment down below if you like my list. Please be nice. Comment down below anyone that I missed in rounds 9 or later. Maybe I'll make a video about them in the future. And as always, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.